What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's time for another recap of what went down on this week's installment of Jenelle Evans's I Have Something to Say crapumentary. Of course, I have to preface this video with my usual disclaimer, which is that Jenelle and David are both pathological liars. You know, their relationship and home is both incredibly safe and toxic, allegedly, according to their own admissions. There were 25 911 calls to this home within the span of 1 year, which amounts to a 911 call every 2 weeks, you know, for domestic incidents. And, Jenelle, in writing, when she was filing for a restraining order against David, accused him of abusing both her and their children. And when it came to abusing the children, she accused David of locking Kaiser in a running car. He also accused her of being a neglectful parent who was never there for like Marissa or any of the other kids. He claimed that it was only him doing the child rearing. So don't listen to anything it is that they're saying. They are liars. This recap is just to really dig into that and talk about how they keep spinning narratives to, to suit them. In this week's episode, they are talking about the investigation that happened once it hit social media and the news that David had shot their dog Nugget. And remember, Jenelle initially cooperated with the police because she was upset with David. She was the one who was on social media crying about the dog, talking about how she can't forgive David. She doesn't know if she'll forgive him, doesn't know if she wants to be with him, all that stuff, and then turned around and wasted police time by refusing to cooperate further. And then she was the one who turned around and wasted police time by contradicting her earlier statements. And by the way, a couple of people have been asking me, no, I'm not going to be making an official response video to her dragging me on her Instagram stories because, none of this is about me. I don't want to distract from the seriousness of the story by involving myself in it. She could say whatever she wants about me, but at the end of the day, I just want to talk about the news that she is giving us, and that's literally it. So the video starts off with a clip of the E! News host dragging her for filing a false report about Nugget, and then she and David start talking about how the police showed up to investigate their home while they were in South Carolina. They had a search warrant and everything, and apparently there were 12 police. They called, and then David asked them to wait because they're in South Carolina. He wanted to be present while they executed the warrant, which is very interesting to me because legally they could have just entered, broken down the door and done whatever it was that they needed to do, but they did wait for David to return to the home, and it took over an hour because they told him, be here in 30 minutes or we'll just kick down your door. And he's like, listen, I'm in South Carolina. It's going to take me a bit longer than 30 minutes. So it was 30 plus another 40, which is about an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm like, what were they doing all this time while waiting for him for an hour and 10 minutes? And why would they even wait that long? Knowing how famous he is to that local police department as the county psycho. It really did not make any kind of sense to me. I think it was just a great example of privilege at its finest, right? So anyway, when David gets to the house, they tell him that they're there to execute a search warrant for Nugget. So anyway, when David arrives, they tell him that they're there to execute a search warrant for a dog that they believe might have been in danger. And then David's like, what dog is missing? There's a dog right here, referring to Jax, the pit bull, which was obviously not the one that they were looking for. And he just refused to play ball with them. And, things get really chilly here because what he says is this: anything I do on my property with my property is none of your business. So the fact that this man refers to this dog as his property really, honestly, it sent a shiver down my spine, to be quite frank with you, because, that is truly the way he sees these living, breathing animals. And just knowing what, I heard that while I was on vacation, something happened with the goat. Apparently he killed a family goat and ate it. It's gross. This guy is gross. He should have been sent to a mental health hospital a long time ago, but unfortunately it is too late at this point, and it seems like he is only further declining as the years go by. And then Jenelle shows a security video footage from the night when the cops were inside their home. You also see them outside as well. And David shows us the footage that he filmed of himself refusing to leave the home while the cops executed their search warrant. And he calls out the police for lying and claiming that the home was incredibly filthy. And, I do have to admit that the home was very, well kept by the time the police were there, which is also a testament to how they I guess, leave their home. Like they were already out of town in South Carolina. So it's not like they had time to clean up their home before the cops were there. Like the cops were waiting on the porch for them to let them in, and it was already this clean. So I do agree that, if it is even true that the cop was claiming that the house was filthy, that was a lie, because in the footage we saw, the house looked very clean. Then he also shows more footage of himself actually antagonizing the police in the house that his wife owns, might I say, and pays all the bills for. Like he's talking about, it's my house. No, baby, it is your wife's house. You are just a squatter in your wife's house. You have never paid a bill in your damn life. Isn't it fascinating to anyone else that David is online all the time talking about Blue Lives Matter, but when he has the blue lives in his home, he treats them like crap. He's antagonizing them. Like like the way he spoke down to that woman officer demanding her name and stuff, like, oh, don't touch me, you're in my house, like all this stuff, I got you on camera. Like he is just so typical of that crowd. Next, he claims that CPS wanted to take his kids without providing a reason, but again, we already saw in episode 2 that CPS had a lot of reason to believe, at least in the case of Ensley, that she was being physically and or sexually abused. In one case, they filled out 2 boxes. That was box 1. And then in the second box, they said that her parents were either unwilling or unable to protect her from it. That was their suspicion when they took her out to investigate. And then when Jenelle went on her Instagram to respond to my story about that, she was very proud when she said this. She was like, first of all, it's Kaiser who they suspect is being physically abused. And and then she also claimed that all of her children's paperwork said the same thing, which in my mind means, listen, you're not protecting any one of these kids, right? Like if all of your kids are under suspicion of being either physically or sexually abused, and they're saying that you and or your husband are not protecting any of them, that's a problem. I don't know who you think you're dragging with that, but like it's a self-drag in my opinion. Then she also lets us know that she's probably an anti-vaxxer now, and she claims that Marissa's grades started slipping when she was removed from the home. And she's like, David and I noticed that, and then we had to get her back on track when we had her back in the home. To which I say this, listen, I don't believe that David and Jenelle are dedicated to sincerely homeschooling this child. If anything, I feel like they're probably helping her to digitally cheat or something like that. They're probably like, oh, whatever, we'll go like on the boat all day, every day, or like, you do your own thing. And then when it comes time to turn in these virtual assignments, because I think there is a standardized place where they turn them in, we're going to go on the internet and find all the answers for you. I feel like that's what it was. And then when Marissa was in a more like legitimate form of homeschooling, it was more reflective of where she was in comparison to her peers, based on the lack of attention that David and Jenelle, I suspect them anyway, of paying to her grades. And that's not a dig at Marissa personally. I think it's more reflective of my opinion of David and Janelle's parenting, or should I say lack of parenting. If you recall, when all of this drama was really going down, the police claimed that Jenelle admitted that she had filed this false report about Nugget and wasted their time in the form of a publicity stunt. And so that is another narrative that Jenelle is trying to spin over here. She says, listen, when he called me, I told him that it did happen, but he would have to talk to my husband about it because I am not answering any questions. Which is very interesting because it was reported that while she was mad at David, she did initially cooperate with the investigation. And then once they reconciled, that's when she started saying, what gunshot? I didn't hear any gunshots. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But she is leaving out that part. She's claiming that the only ever interaction she had with them was when she called them to say to them that they need to call David and talk to him about it. And, I don't believe that that is true for a second. She also said something that was very interesting when it comes to the entire situation. She said, and I quote, I never in my life admitted that this was a hoax. Admitted being the key word here. Why would you have to admit something if it's not true? You know what I mean? I think that someone who is telling the truth would have said, I never would have claimed that it was a hoax. But the fact that she used admitted instead of claimed, to me, was a little bit of, her telling on herself. She says, listen, the dog is dead. Okay, so if it was a hoax, the dog would be alive. And then she also complained that no one has personally reached out to her to discuss the situation. And again, Jenelle is a pathological liar. It is not at all true. Right now on my laptop, I'm looking at the people TV interview that she and David did about the dog, where they contradicted a couple of things that they discuss in this documentary as well. And another interesting thing about this People TV video where they talked about the Nugget situation, David says this: the dog was a violent dog, okay? That's why I didn't decide to rehome the dog, because apparently it's against the law to, once a dog bites someone, especially a child, in the face, he claims that you have a certain amount of hours to euthanize the dog, or else he would be held liable. But then in this same interview, he later talks about how he's got another dog. It was a pit bull that was violent, and he learned his lesson from this, and so he rehomed that. So now all of a sudden it's not against the law. Like, these people just talk out of both sides of their mouths all the time. And that's why I very closely follow this series that she's putting out, just to clock her in every single one of them. Anyway, you guys, that's all I have to say about the situation. But as usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything. So please make sure to leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.